Hello beautiful besties, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Rachel and welcome to my bookshelf tour. I'm so excited for today's video. I believe it was over a year ago the last time I posted a bookshelf tour, and so much has changed since then. I'm living in a different house, I have more books, I have more shelves, and I organize my books in a completely different way. So I'm very excited to take you guys on an in-depth journey through my shelves. Before we get started, a couple of things. Number one, I do have the iconic IKEA Billy bookshelves in case anyone is curious, and I just counted and I have 429 books, which is wild. So without further ado, let's just get straight into it and tour my bookshelves. All right, so the very first shelf is my top shelf here, and it is, as you can see, mostly just adult fantasy. Starting off, we do have the Lord of the Rings trilogy, a trilogy that I still need to get to, but I have read The Hobbit. Definitely a life goal to read The Lord of the Rings. Hasn't happened yet, we shall see. Then I have two John Gwynne books. So I have Malice and then The Shadow of the Gods. Those are two first books in a series, and I've heard a lot of great things about John Gwynne, so I'm excited to get into his work. I then have the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb. I really need to get to these. They were definitely on multiple TBRs and just didn't pan out, but once again, an author that I have just heard such glowing things about, and I'm really excited to read these books. Then we have my little Brandon Sanderson section. So the first one is Warbreaker. Oh, and by the way, I do have the UK paperbacks of these books. Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson was absolutely fantastic. I think it was my first 5-star of the year, and I loved it. It was a great introduction into Brandon Sanderson's writing, and I just had so much fun reading it. Then I have the Mistborn trilogy. So that is The Final Empire, The Well of Ascension, and The Hero of Ages. I have read The Final Empire and The Well of Ascension. I loved The Final Empire so much, and I was kind of lukewarm on The Well of Ascension, so I'll be very curious to see how the series concludes with The Hero of Ages. Next up, I have two mass market paperbacks from the Stormlight Archive series, which I have not read yet. I have The Way of Kings and Oathbringer. That is the first and third book in the series. I do need to pick up the second book at some point because I definitely want to dive into that series next year. And then finally, the last series on this shelf is the stunning Green Bone Saga. You guys know I love this series so much. I just finished Jade Legacy a couple days ago now, maybe like 4 or 5 days ago, and oh, it broke me in the best way. I will be thinking about this series for the rest of my life. I love it so much. Can't say enough amazing things about this series. Okay, so the next shelf down has a little bit of a theme with the color of these books. I didn't intend to do this, but this shelf is comprised mostly of black and gold and red and a little bit of white books, and I just think it looks really pretty. So we have Divine Rivals, Dance of Thieves. I do have the Six of Crows duology, Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. These books are super beautiful with the foiled cover, and then it has red sprayed edges, which I think just looks so beautiful. I have two books by Erin Morgenstern. I have The Night Circus and The Starless Sea. I have Cassandra Clare's new book, Swordcatcher. We have The Jasmine Throne, Name of the Wind, Babel, The God of Endings, Empire the Vampire. And then at the end here, I have Iron Flame. I have the holiday edition of Fourth Wing. I love this edition so much. I love the red and of course the black sprayed edges. And then last, I have the A Darker Shade of Magic trilogy by V.E. Schwab. All right, so the next shelf down, I love just so much. It has two of my favorite YA fantasy series on it, and two series that have wonderful romances in them. Starting off, we have, of course, the Folk of the Air series. I love this trilogy so much. I love Jude and Cardan. They are the best enemies to lovers that I've ever read. So next to just the traditional versions, I do have this really stunning LitJoy Crate edition of the series. These are just absolutely beautiful. I love the covers. They do have gold foiling, and they also have Holly Black's annotations in them. And then directly in the sun here, I have the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. So Once Upon a Broken Heart, The Ballad of Never After, and A Curse for True Love. I just have this little IKEA plant on top of it. I think it looks nice, and I love this trilogy. My favorite book is definitely The Ballad of Never After. It is so good. On this next shelf, we have a mix of just some YA fantasy. I also have some adult fantasy romance on here. I really love this shelf. So starting off, we do have Alone, Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. I do have a full Shadowhunter shelf, which we will get to, but this edition did not fit. So she has made her home here. Maybe one day I can reconfigure my Cassandra Clare shelf, but for now, she's holding it down up here. Next to that, I have Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I have Light Lark, One Dark Window, Two Twisted Crowns. I still need to read that. I'm very excited. I've heard wonderful things about the conclusion of this duology. Next to that, I have Fate of Wrath and Flame, and A Curse of Blood and Stone. The Curse of Saints, I have A Court This Cruel and Lovely. I have heard amazing things about this book. I started it like 5 months ago, but I wasn't in the mood and I put it down, and ever since then I've just seen incredible reviews of it. I'd be curious if you've read this and if you enjoyed it, because this is definitely going to be a priority read for January for me. Then I have Bow Before the Elf Queen. I have Powerless, which I just had to put back on my shelf because I am reading this right now, so that's why it wasn't on the shelf. But reading Powerless currently, I'm enjoying it. Heavenly Bodies and Fallen Stars. Next to that, I have The Crown of Oaths and Curses. This is a really fantastic enemies to lovers fan row. If you like true enemies, like they hate each other for the entire book, 10 out of 10 recommend. I really enjoyed this and I cannot wait for book 2 to come out. Also, just like, look at her. She is everything. And to wrap up this shelf, I have A Dawn of Onyx, Nevernight. I have the Regency Fairy Tales by Olivia Atwater, which are Half a Soul, 10,000 Stitches, and Long Shadow. These are Regency fantasy romances. Then there is Wolf Gone Wild, Flame and Sparrow, A Dowry of Blood, which is one of my all-time favorite books. I love this book to death. And lastly, Bound and Barbed. Okay, so the next shelf down, we have quite a bit of fantasy romance, and to start us off, we have the Zodiac Academy series. If you have been around for a while, you know that I have a history with the Zodiac Academy series. I binged that series last year and it was so much fun. I think this series is so chaotic and so fun and so wild, and I got super invested in the characters. But I will say, as the books went on, I was getting a little bit exhausted and wasn't loving the latter half of the series as much as I loved the first half. But no regrets, I think it's a super fun series. I will be finishing it whenever the authors decide to finally end the series, because they have changed that around a little bit, but I am excited to see the conclusion of these characters. My favorite book is definitely still the third book, The Reckoning. It's so good. So now we have my little Carissa Broadbent section. She is one of my absolute favorite fantasy romance authors. So first up, I have the War of Lost Hearts trilogy. This is her first series, and I enjoyed myself. It's a solid series, but not my favorite by her. I will say though, this is my favorite book cover of hers. This is absolutely stunning. But my favorite series by her is, of course, the Crowns of Nyaxia series. I love Serpent and the Wings of Night so much. This book just like changed me and just made me a Carissa Broadbent stan. It is a vampire fantasy romance, 1,000,000 out of 10 recommend. So we have the Serpent and the Wings of Night, Six Scorched Roses, which is a novella in this series, and then we have The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, and then after that we do have Slaying the Vampire Conqueror. So this book is technically part of the Mortal Enemies to Monster Lovers series, which is a set of standalones that a bunch of different fantasy romance authors put out together. However, this book does exist in the Crowns of Nyaxia world, so I put it with the Crowns of Nyaxia series. It can be read as a standalone, but I think you're going to get much more enjoyment out of it if you read the other books in the series first. But I really enjoyed this, and I love this couple. And then at the end here, not quite fantasy romances, I tried. I tried to put like all genres together, but you're gonna see as this bookshelf tour goes on, sometimes I just have fantasy and then there's a random fan row on the shelf, or vice versa. I have romances and then a literary fiction novel has made its way onto that shelf. I first attempted to organize it by genre, but then I think just like vibes took over, and that is where we are at now. So I have A Broken Blade, I have The Priory of the Orange Tree, I have House of Beating Wings, Fireborn, and The Lies of Locke Lamora. All right, so we have made it to the bottom shelf of this first bookcase, which means we have made it to the Cassandra Clare section of my bookshelves. So I have the Mortal Instruments, the Infernal Devices, the Dark Artifices, and the Last Hours trilogy. I actually just read City of Fallen Angels, so next up is going to be City of Lost Souls. I have already read the Infernal Devices. I'm reading the series in the author's recommended order, and I really enjoyed that way so far. As I said, I just finished City of Fallen Angels, and I loved it so much. It made me like the Mortal Instruments so much more. I'm really excited for City of Lost Souls and City of Heavenly Fire. The more that I read Cassandra Clare's books, the more that I really enjoy them. You know, when I was reading City of Bones and City of Ashes, I was kind of like, I don't know about this bestie, but I definitely think that her writing and just the way that she writes characters and romance and fantasy and all that has improved as the books have gone on, and now I genuinely really enjoy them. I have to say the Last Hours trilogy is what I am most excited to get to. It is my goal to make it to these books next year. Once I found out who these books follow, I was like, oh my god, I need to get to these ASAP. So I'm very excited for Chain of Gold, Chain of Iron, and Chain of Thorns. And then at the end here, you will see The Hurricane Wars, which is not by Cassandra Clare, but I needed one more book on this shelf, and The Hurricane Wars was the perfect fit. Admittedly, I did not like the Hurricane Wars. I actually ended up DNFing it, so I don't know how long it's gonna be on my shelf, but for now, it's a very beautiful book and it fits. All right, so the next shelf over, we have mainly just YA fantasy. I think there's only one adult fantasy book on this shelf, but starting off, we have the Gilded Wolves trilogy by Roshani Chokshi. So I read the Gilded Wolves, gosh, maybe 2 or 3 years ago now, and I really enjoyed it, but I haven't picked up the Silvered Serpents or the Bronzed Beasts yet. I really want to finish this series in 2024. That is one of my goals. I really loved the Gilded Wolves. I gave it 4 stars. I'll definitely need to do a reread because I don't remember a ton of details, but I do remember the overall plot. I really enjoyed the characters. Yeah, I feel like I don't see people talk about the series as much, but I think it's really great. Then we have Legendborn, Bloodmarked, Daughter of the Moon Goddess. I have the Diviners series in all variations of the dust jackets that came out. Then I have the These Hollow Vows duology, which is These Hollow Vows and These Twisted Bonds. I have This Woven Kingdom, A Study in Drowning, Belladonna, and Foxglove. I love Belladonna so much. It was one of my best books of the year last year. I think it's a super strong YA fantasy, YA like paranormal fantasy romance. And I was very excited for Foxglove, but to be honest with you, I did not love it. And the more time that has passed since I have read it, the more disappointed I feel by it. I just don't really love the way that the series is going. I'm not really interested in the direction it's going. So I honestly don't know if I'm going to pick up the last book in the series, Wisteria, because it sounds like it's going to be focusing on things that I'm just not particularly interested in. So I'm a little bit disappointed by that, but I still think Belladonna is such a strong book and I absolutely loved it. At the end here, we have One for My Enemy by Olive Blake, and then the Remnant Chronicles, which is The Kiss of Deception, The Heart of Betrayal, and The Beauty of Darkness. All right, so here is one of my absolute favorite shelves. This is a fantasy romance only shelf, and I just love a lot of the books that are on this shelf. So first off, we have the ACOTAR trilogy, and as you can see, I have the UK paperback editions. So I really wanted editions of ACOTAR with the original covers on them because when I got into ACOTAR, those covers were already out of print, and I've just always really loved these spines. I just think they're really cool. So I found each of these books for a pretty decent price and picked them up, and I'm really happy about it because I just really love these and I love the way that they look on my shelves. Next, we have the Witchwalker series by Charissa Weeks. So we have The Witch Collector, City of Ruin, and The Wolf and the Witch. I have read The Witch Collector and I read it, I want to say this summer. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, but I have not picked up City of Ruin yet. I have put it on so many TBRs. Ugh, cone of shame, honestly. And the reason why I'm so irritated with myself about that is because I have heard City of Ruin is like the book. It's kind of like how when you read the ACOTAR series, you read ACOTAR and you're like, okay, that was fun, but then you read A Court of Mist and Fury and you're like, oh my god, inject this into my veins right now. I have heard that City of Ruin has the same effect, so I really need to pick it up, but that's just gonna have to be a next year thing. I already have my end of year TBR set, and I don't know why, but I just feel like the end of the year is coming so quickly, so I'm just already deciding what books I'm gonna be reading in 2024, and City of Ruin is gonna be one of them, but I really hope that I love it as much as everyone else does. The Wolf and the Witch is a novella in this series. I believe the next full-length book in this series is coming out soon, either January or February, I wanna say. So next to the Witchwalker series, we have 2 books from that Mortal Enemies to Monster Lovers series that Slaying the Vampire Conqueror was a part of. So I have Slaying the Shifter Prince and then Slaying the Shadow Prince. This is by Claire Sager and this is by Helen Shorer, who wrote this series, which we'll talk about in a second. Once again, this is a standalone fantasy romance, but it does take place in this series world, and it's a good idea to read this book in between the first and second book of that series. I just really like these covers. I know that they're cheesy. I've heard some people being like, oh my god, those covers are so cringe. I love them. I think they are so cute. I love the art style. I have no complaints. Next to Slaying the Shadow Prince, I have Reign of Shadows and Endings by Melissa K. Rorick. I have the first 2 books in the Legends of Thesmar series, which is Blood and Steel and Vows and Ruins. I read Blood and Steel a couple months ago and I enjoyed it. It was like a 3.5 star moment, but I liked it enough and I'm curious enough that I am going to continue on with the series, so that is why I picked up the second book, Vows and Ruins, and I'm excited for it. Then we have A Deal with the Elf King by Elise Kova, and then next up we have the Blood Grace series by Bella Roth. So the first book is Blood Mercy, and I loved that book. I gave it 4 stars. It is like an epic fantasy romance. The writing is super incredible. It's pretty dense, but it is such a well-written and beautifully crafted world, and the romance is so sweet. It's kind of like Friends to Lovers, and our romance hero is a vampire, but he is just so nice. He is such a cinnamon roll hero, and I'm really excited to continue on with the series. I decided to have the second book, Blood Solace, facing out because this is just absolutely gorgeous. I love the colors of this book. This is just giving lover, and I am so obsessed. So next to Blood Solace, I have books 3 and 4, which is Blood Sanctuary Part 1 and 2. I'm not sure why they're separated out, but I will find out soon enough. And then I do have 2 copies of Fear the Flames. So the reason that I have 2 editions is the first edition is the one that I read for the first time. As you can see, the spine is very cracked, and the author ended up doing some revising to the first edition and put out a reprint, and she actually sent me this edition here, and I was just so like blown away by her kindness. This is the very first book that I've ever had sent to me by like an author or publisher or anything, and it's just like so special to me because of that, and I'm just like so grateful. So really happy to have both of these on my shelves. So the next shelf up brings us to my Throne of Glass section of my bookshelves. The Throne of Glass series is my all-time favorite fantasy series. I love it so much. I think it is brilliant. I think it is endlessly entertaining. I love these characters like they are real people. I love Throne of Glass so much. So I do have a few editions of this series because reading books and collecting books are 2 very different hobbies, both of which I am a fan of, and you will definitely see that throughout this bookshelf tour. So let's go through this shelf. So first up, you will see the first 4 books in the series in the new paperback editions that Bloomsbury put out. So here is The Assassin's Blade. I do like these covers. I don't think they're like groundbreaking, but I like them well enough. So after The Assassin's Blade, Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, and Heir of Fire, I have these absolutely stunning dust jackets from A Touch of Magic Design. So any of the like special edition books that I have, I will put the Instagram handle of the shop that I got them from somewhere on the screen. So these are by A Touch of Magic Designs, and the artist is Dominique Wesson, and these are my favorite dust jackets that I have. I love this art style so much. I think that they absolutely brought the characters to life. Here we have the main character of the series, Selena Sardathian, being a bad bee. I just love her so much. And then on the back, we have Dorian and Kale, 2 of the other main characters in the series, and I just love this dust jacket so much. I think it is so gorgeous. So I have the entire series in hardcover in those special editions by A Touch of Magic Designs, and then we have the rest of the just new Bloomsbury paperbacks, Queen of Shadows, Empire of Storms, and I am actually currently reading Empire of Storms. As you can see, I am on my 3rd read of the series, and I'm having a great time. Then we have Tower of Dawn and Kingdom of Ash. The next shelf up is another Throne of Glass shelf, so I do just have the original covers in hardcover, and then I have the very iconic Nerdy Ink dust jackets. I love these so much. The spines in particular I think are so beautiful. I really love the font that they use, and I just think these are so cool. This is probably my favorite cover. I love the green. I love the character on this cover. This is just one of my favorite editions of this series that I own. At the end, I do have the collector's edition of Throne of Glass, and then I have 2 copies of Fourth Wing. So I have the original sprayed edges version, and then I did just get a regular version without sprayed edges when I did my reread because I don't really want to touch these edges. I want to keep them nice. So the next shelf is another very special shelf to me, and that is my Crescent City shelf. I love Crescent City so much. House of Earth and Blood is in contention for being my favorite book of all time. I love this book to death. It is so much fun, so much amazing world building. The characters are fantastic. I could go on and on, but I also really love this book because this is the very first book that I read. Like when I decided to get back into reading, I picked this book up on a whim at Barnes & Noble. I had never heard of ACOTAR or Throne of Glass or Sarah J Maas or anything. I was just like, I want to get into fantasy. So I picked this book up because I thought the cover was pretty and the synopsis sounded cool. And then honestly, like my life changed after reading this book. This is also the very first fantasy romance that I ever read, and it introduced me to the genre. I like didn't know that fantasy romance existed and that could be a thing. And now obviously it is my absolute favorite genre. It is why I made a YouTube channel, because I wanted to talk about fantasy romance books. So House of Earth and Blood, I owe it my life, honestly. And I do have quite a few editions of this book, so let's go through those. So first up, I do have the Fairy Loot edition of House of Earth and Blood, and I'll show you guys that here in a second. So this is stunning, obviously, right? Here's the dust jacket. Here are the sprayed edges, so beautiful. And then the end pages have really beautiful art of 2 of the main characters of this series. And then next to that, I just have the regular hardcover edition. That is the first one that I owned. Here is the Illumicrate edition. So that is the front, and then beautiful sprayed edges. There are also page overlays in here, but I'm not going to show those because they are spoilery. And this one also has really beautiful end page art. Then I have a couple paperback editions of House of Earth and Blood, and then we get into the House of Sky and Breath section. So once again, I do have the Illumicrate version with these blue sprayed edges, and once again, super stunning art on the end pages. Also, the naked book itself is gorgeous. Next to that, I just have my original hardcover, which I got on release day, and then my Fairy Loot edition of House of Sky and Breath, which once again, can we just take a moment? This is absolutely stunning. I love these edges so much. And then I'm not going to show you the other character on here because it's a little spoilery, but here's Hunt in all of his glory. All right, so this top shelf has a little bit of everything. We have some adult fantasy, fantasy romance, sci-fi, YA, we have it all here. So I have Daughter of Smoke and Bone, I have the Night Circus, that is the UK paperback edition. Then I have Falling Kingdoms, Strange the Dreamer, starting with Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I love this book so much. Earlier this year, I did do a vlog where I read books out of my comfort zone, and I picked Project Hail Mary because I heard really great things, but I was not a sci-fi girly, so I was like, okay, let me try this out. And this book honestly just changed me. It's one of the best books I've ever read. It's so fantastic. If you decide to pick it up, please listen to the audiobook. I personally think the audiobook is required listening for when you read it, and you'll just find out what that means once you listen to it, but I cannot say enough good things about Andy Weir's writing. I also have The Martian, and I love that book as well. I also gave it 5 stars. I thought it was so good. Next to that, I have my Red Rising section by Pierce Brown. So Red Rising, Golden Sun, Morning Star, then I have Iron Gold, Dark Age, and Lightbringer. At the end here, I have the paperback editions of ACOTAR. When I do rereads of my favorite series, I do like to read them in paperback just because I have a lot of like special editions of these books that I don't want to touch or mess with. So I have ACOTAR, ACOMAF, ACOWAR, ACOFAS, and ACOSIF, and I have 2 editions of A Court of Silver Flames because love that book. And then at the end there, I have Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson and City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. Moving on to the next bookcase, I have a little bit of everything on this shelf. So this is mainly comprised of fantasy, but I do have a few romances at the end here. But I have the Atlas 6 by Olive Blake. I do have the original indie version, which I really love and much prefer to the traditionally published cover. Then I have the Bone Shard Daughter, the Blood Trials, I have Ninth House and Hellbent, the Sword of Kaigan. I do have the anniversary edition of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Next to that, I have the Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi, Midnight in Everwood. Next to that, I have the Prison Healer, and then I have Throne of the Fallen. If you know, you know that I did not really like this book, so her days on my shelf are probably numbered, to be honest with you, because if I don't like a book, I just don't keep it. I unhaul it. I really only like to keep books on my shelves that I read and I really enjoyed, or that I haven't read but I'm very excited to read. Throne of the Fallen was just such a disappointment for me, so I'll probably be unhauling that soon. Next to that, I have Black Sunshine and The Blood is Love, which is a paranormal romance duology. And then down here, so these are a bunch of contemporary romances that I purchased recently, and I just need to integrate them into my like romance shelves, but I haven't done that yet, so they're just here for now, but I am going to work them into my shelves soon. So the first one is Mistakes Were Made, then Wreck the Halls, 7 Days in June, and Count Your Lucky Stars. All right, so we are now moving on to some romance shelves that I have, starting with the Heartstopper graphic novel series. I love Heartstopper so much. Oh, it just like puts a smile on my face even thinking about it. I'm really excited. I believe the 5th volume comes out in either December or January, so we're going to be getting that soon, and I cannot wait. Next to that, I have The Heir, Binding 13, Gothicana. I have Real, The Kingmaker, and Longshot, all by Kennedy Ryan. The Words by A. Jade. Then I have some Chloe Lease books. I have Two Wrongs Make a Right, Only When It's Us, and Always Only You. I have The Neighbor Favor, The Fiancé Farce, Archer's Voice, One True Loves, All Roads Lead Here, Hate by Tate James, and then I have the 1st, 3rd, and 4th book in the Dirty Air series by Lauren Asher. This is a Formula One sports romance series, and I am a Formula One girly. I absolutely love it so much. It's the only sport I care about. So when I heard about the series, I was super excited. My favorite book is definitely the first one, Throttled. I really loved Noah and Maya's story, and as you can see, I don't have the 2nd book there because I did not like it at all. So I unhauled it, and I just have the 1st, 3rd, and 4th, and I am happy with that. Next to that, I have Blindside, Every Summer After, You Again, and then Angel's Blood by Nalini Singh. So the next shelf up is more contemporary romance, and starting off, we have my favorite contemporary romance series of all time, and that is the Chestnut Springs series by Elsie Silver. This is kind of like a ranch, horse girl, bull rider romance, which I did not think I was gonna like. That's not my vibe, it's just not for me, but I decided to pick up Heartless, which is the 2nd book in the series. I saw so many people talking about it, and I wanted to give it a shot, and these are technically like interconnected standalones. You don't have to read them in order. I didn't. So I started with Heartless, and oh my god, like I changed as a person after after reading this book. It was so good. I actually remember when I read this, I read it on my Kindle and our power was out and there was like a lightning and thunderstorm. And I just spent the whole night giggling and kicking my feet in the dark. It was such a good experience. I love this book so much. Cade and Willa are absolutely everything. So after reading this, I wanted to go back and read Flawless, the first book, and then I read the rest of the series. So the series goes Flawless, Heartless, Powerless, Reckless, and Hopeless. So I do have the regular like people covers, but then I also got the discreet covers just because this is one of my favorite series of all time, and that means I have to have multiple editions of it. This one is my favorite. This is Powerless, and it has a little ballerina on the front, which I love, and I love Jasper and Sloane so much. And I have Mile High, The Right Move, and Caught Up, which are part of the Windy City series by Liz Tomford. I have 2 Emily Henry books, Beach Read and People We Meet on Vacation. I have Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. Love this one. Delilah Green Doesn't Care and Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail. Love on the Brain, It Happened One Summer, Red, White, and Royal Blue. Then I have The Mistletoe Motive by Chloe Leese. This is the best Christmas romance. Like, please read this holiday season. It is so good. It's a hockey Christmas romance. Enemies to lovers. There's a bookstore. It is everything. Yours truly, Written in the Stars, The Unhoneymooners, and Love in Other Words. Next up, we have an ACOTAR shelf. ACOTAR, I just love this series so much. I feel like that is obvious. I know I'm saying that about everything, but as I said, I am somebody who really only keeps books that I absolutely love on my shelves. So what you see on my shelves is indicative of that I have so much love for and just mean the world to me. ACOTAR being no exception. I remember reading ACOTAR just at a time when I really needed it. I feel like I was just like mentally not in a good headspace. But I picked this series up and it just did something to me. It brought me so much happiness, so much joy. God, that's why I feel like so emotional about this series and like so nostalgic, because it was just like, it was exactly what I needed at, you know, kind of just a difficult time. And I'm so happy that I read it. And it really just like set me off on this amazing reading journey along with Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood. But the ACOTAR series definitely holds a very special place in my heart. Enough sappiness, Rachel. Oh my God. Let's get back to regularly scheduled programming. This is the Dusty Shop editions of the ACOTAR series. These are special dust jackets that they made, and I just think they are so beautiful. They are mainly all black with just images in the center, and I think that's really beautiful. So I have the series displayed like this because I just think it looks really nice. And then I do have some cute little bookshelf decor here. So number one, I have this little table with soup, and it is covered in paint, which is just such a cute little knickknack to have on my shelves. I have that in front of A Court of Mist and Fury, of course. And then down here, I have this little dresser. So this is actually referenced in the very first book, like right at the beginning. Feyre, the main character, paints her and her sister's dresser like so. We have flowers for Elaine, flames for Nesta, and then the starry night sky for Feyre. And then at the top, we have the ACOTAR series, which I think is so cute. I just feel like that's a little like nod to the series, kind of meta, just so cute. I love this dresser. This is a special edition of ACOTAR. I will have the Instagram artist's handle somewhere on the screen, but look at how absolutely stunning this is. And then the sprayed edges are just insane. This book is truly a work of art. I love it so much. And then of course I just have like the regular hardcovers, and then I just have the collector's edition of ACOTAR, and I just think this is really beautiful. I love the image of Feyre being an archer, being a baddie. She has no idea her whole entire life is about to change. I love that. And then next to that, I do have the A Touch of Magic Designs editions of the ACOTAR series. So I showed the Throne of Glass editions earlier. I also have them for the ACOTAR series. So here is the first one. Here's Feyre on the front being beautiful. And then on the back, we have him. So I have the rest of the series, of course, in that A Touch of Magic Designs dust jacket collection. And then I have this book, which this is actually my most prized possession. I would like to be buried with this book. Thank you very much. So this book was gifted to me by my best friend, Hannah, at Hannah's Recent Reads. So she surprised me because she is a literal angel with an edition of A Court of Silver Flames, which is one of my favorite books of all time. Once again, in contention for my favorite book of all time. I just love it so much. And she found this really cool dust jacket for this edition. She customized the cover. She like painted some of this, which is amazing. And then she annotated it because she is literally an angel on earth. Like, I was shocked when I opened this package. I had no idea she was doing this. I just started crying. I was so overwhelmed. I just cannot believe that I have such an amazing friend in my life who took the time to do this. It is insane. So Hannah, I love you so much and I cherish this book to death. It's just everything to me. She also made a Spotify playlist and put that in the book. This book just means absolutely everything to me. I cannot believe that BookTube has led me to just some of the most amazing and wonderful people that I've ever known. And yeah, Hannah, I will never get over the fact that you did this. Thank you so, so much. Lastly, here we have a rogue edition of House of Sky and Breath. So this is the tour edition and it came just like this. So when House of Sky and Breath came out, she did a little virtual tour and you could buy a tour special edition of the book, and I did. And it's just this, very simple. Doesn't fit on the Crescent City shelf, so she's hanging out here. So this top shelf of this third bookcase has a lot of my favorite contemporary romances. Starting off, we have Kiss the Sky and Hothouse Flower, which are part of the Calloway Sisters series, which is a part of the Addicted Calloway Sisters series. I don't really like the Addicted books, so I unhauled those and I have just kept Kiss the Sky and Hothouse Flower, which I absolutely love. Then we have the Magnolia Park series. I really love this series. Jessa's writing is unmatched. It is so beautiful. And then I have my little Sally Rooney section. Sally Rooney is one of my favorite authors of all time. She is everything. She is a genius. So I have Conversations with Friends, Beautiful World, Where Are You? And then Normal People. And then I also have this Faber edition of Normal People, which is this red and pink book. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm standing on a very rickety chair behind my camera right now, so I can't really like reach out and grab the books on the top shelves to show you all in more detail, but just know this is a beautiful book. I really love it. I just think it's so cool and I'm really happy to have it on my shelves. And then at the end here, we have Alone with You in the Ether, we have the Stationery Shop, Twisted Games, Twisted Hate, and Twisted Lies, all by Anna Huang. And then I have the Gold Rush Ranch series, which is the first series by Elsie Silver, and that is Off to the Races, a photo finish, The Front Runner, and a false start. At the very end there, we have Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas, a book that I did not know that I was going to love, but I ended up giving 5 stars because I think it is such an immaculate romance. So good, so beautiful, and just absolutely everything. All right, so this next shelf has a lot of my favorite literary fiction novels, just like contemporary fiction, and then I also have some thrillers on here. So we have Adelaide, You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, Cleopatra and Frankenstein. I also have Yoke by Mary H.K. Choi. This is one of my favorite books of all time. It is so good. It is so emotional, and it really focuses on sister relationships and dynamics, and I just loved reading about it. The writing is beautiful. It's fantastic, and I just love this cover so much. Next to that, I have Anxious People, The House in the Cerulean Sea, Little Fires Everywhere. Next to that is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I love this book so much. I can't wait to reread it. It hit me like a ton of bricks. It was such an emotional journey. I love the characters. I love the story. Oh God, it was just so good. Then I have Disorientation, Yellowface, Malibu Rising, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Daisy Jones and the Six, which is my favorite Taylor Jenkins Reid book. Then things get a little random here. So I have a historical fiction, The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I have They Never Learn and For Your Own Good, which are 2 thrillers that I really enjoyed. Next to that is All the Light We Cannot See, Big Little Lies. Then we have Gone Girl, which is the best thriller of all time. It is so good. It is a literary masterpiece. I love this book to death. The Cool Girl Monologue. If you know, you know. And then I have If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio, the iconic Dark Academia book. Really enjoyed that one. So while I'm down here, I figure I'm just gonna do this next shelf over. So I do have 5 bookcases, but they're not totally full. And this last one only has 1 shelf filled, which is this shelf. And it's kind of just a mix of everything. So since I'm down here, let's just go through these. I have The Shining by Stephen King, which is very off-brand for me, but I was gifted this book by my dad. I'll read it someday, Dad. Don't know when that day is, but I'll give it a shot. Then I have 2 Mona Awad books. I have Rouge and Bunny. I have My Year of Rest and Relaxation, Our Wives Under the Sea. Then I have the Truly Devious trilogy and the spin-off book. Next to that, I have the Inheritance Games, the Hawthorne Legacy, and then There Were None by Agatha Christie. I have 5 Survive and the Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy and the Harry Potter series. So on this next shelf, we first have a fake plant from IKEA, and then next to that, I have 2 other books by Mary H.K. Choi. I have Emergency Contact and Permanent Record. I have Shatter Me by Tahari Mafi. I have the Hunger Games trilogy, which I think is in the right order. I think it's Catching Fire and then Mockingjay. I haven't read the series. I need to. I really do. I'm really excited to read that series. I don't know, the mood hasn't struck me yet, but I know I need to. It's an iconic series. I feel like it's a crime that I haven't read it. Next to that, I do have the Nevermore series, the first 3 books in the series that are out. So we have Nevermore, Wondersmith, and Hollowpox. This is a middle grade series and it is so good. It is so magical, so whimsical. I'm really excited for the 4th book to come out. I believe it's coming out next year and I cannot wait. Next to that, I have the Spiderwick Chronicles. This was my favorite fantasy series growing up. As a kid, I read this series so much. I did do a reread of this series last year, maybe even like 2 years ago. It didn't quite hit the same as it did when I was like 8, but I still have a lot of love for this series. Also, it was co-written by Holly Black, which is just crazy to think about because so many years later, I read the Folk of the Air trilogy and loved that. So I've been a Holly Black stan for life. And then at the end here, I do have the Percy Jackson series, another iconic early 2000s series that I have not read, but I would like to someday just because I feel like it's a part of my history as someone who grew up in the early 2000s. I can't believe I missed out on this. I do have super cute Nerdy Ink dust jackets for this series in the hopes that it will help motivate me to pick up this series. On the next shelf, I have, once again, a little mix of everything. So I have 2 thrillers that I really loved, No Exit and then Ace of Spades. Next to that, I have Lovely War, and then I have The Song of Achilles. I haven't read this book yet. Still, I've put it on endless TBRs. I can't talk about it. I need to read it. Ariadne and Electra, and then I also have Circe by Madeline Miller. I have read this book. I absolutely love it. I think this edition is just so stunning, so reflective, so beautiful. And then we have the start of my classics collection. So 2 copies of The Great Gatsby. I have Jane Eyre, Frankenstein, Pride and Prejudice, Persuasion. I have The Secret History, which is not a classic, but it fits the aesthetic. Then I have 2 copies of The Picture of Dorian Gray. This is my favorite classic of all time. I love it. It is so weird and so good and just, I love it so much. Then I have Their Eyes Were Watching God, Wuthering Heights, 2 copies of that. The Sun Also Rises, and Sense and Sensibility. So I have more classics here. Starting off, I have the cloth-bound editions of all of Jane Austen's books. Then I have Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, also another one of my favorite classics, so good. Then we have Emma, Anna Karenina. I have this beautiful version of Dracula. This is really beautiful and super reflective as well. Another copy of Dracula, Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales, Shakespeare's Tragedies, Pride and Prejudice. I have Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. I have The Thorns Remain. I don't know why this is here. This book came out like 3 months ago, so absolutely not a classic. It's a fantasy romance, adult, haven't read it yet, excited for it. I guess it kind of goes with these Chiltern classics, so I don't know how she snuck in here. But next to that, as I said, I have the Chiltern classics of Pride and Prejudice, Jane Eyre, and Emma. These are just super cool, really beautiful editions that also have gold sprayed edges. The last book on the shelf is Treasury of Bedtime Stories. I got this for Christmas, I want to say when I was like 6, and I read this book so much. It is just a collection of a bunch of classic fairy tales. I loved it. I reread it a ton, and it just is really special to me because I've had it for so long. Definitely a book that I'll want to pass on to my future children. It's just very cute and really fun illustrations. All right, besties, we have made it to the very last shelf. This shelf is my recent purchases shelf. I need to work all of these fantasies into my fantasy shelves. Don't know when that's gonna happen. That's a problem for future Rachel, but as of now, I just have them on this shelf and I'll rework my bookshelves at a later date. But I did get the Caraval trilogy. After finishing the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, I was just craving more from Stephanie Garber, so I'm gonna give the Caraval trilogy another shot. I have Bound and Barb, the Everking, which is a fantasy romance I've been hearing a lot of good things about. I'm really excited to try this. I have the Book of Asriel and the Throne of Broken Gods by Amber Nicole. Then I have Masters of Death by Olive Blake, and then I have Nightbane. And at the end here, I do have an Aquartimus Imperi candle. This was gifted to me by Hannah when she sent me the package with her customized edition of A Court of Silver Flames. She also included this, which was very sweet. All right, my beautiful besties, so that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed my bookshelf tour. If you made it to this point in the video and you wanted to let me know, go ahead and leave one of the pink hearts. Please make sure that you're following me on Instagram and Goodreads. They are always linked down below. I really do appreciate that you watched this video. I hope that you're having a fantastic day. I love you all so much, and I will catch you guys in the next one.